Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Black at Inside HPC, here to talk about next week's SC24 conference in Atlanta. And with me are three prominent figures in the HPC community, talking about what to keep an eye out for at SC, some of the announcements, keynotes, sessions, trends that they think are noteworthy. With me is Lois Curfman McInnes. She is Senior Computational.
Hello?
Me today. And Lois, let's start with you. I know a big theme at SC and really for the whole industry, a dominant theme is the convergence of HPC and AI. And in fact, that'll be taken up on the opening night keynote by the science correspondent from the PBS network. Please, if you would share some thoughts in that area with us.
Indeed, that's an exciting topic for our whole community to look at how our whole ecosystems for doing scientific computing are evolving and growing as we're considering both high performance computing and new AI technologies. I'm especially excited to hear throughout the opening session and others about how we're advancing our ecosystems in terms of a combination of software and community and people in order to tackle the challenges both technically and from the elements related to growing our workforce and broadening participation.
Yeah, it's really been 2 years. HPC, I mean, AI has been a huge theme, of course, within HPC for well over 10 years, but it really exploded 2 years ago with Gen AI and ChatGPT. Now, Earl, we've seen how AI is impacting the way we look at HPC. I think you have some news coming out along those lines next week.
Right. For the last 3-4 years, we've been trying to better understand what AI is doing to the HPC market and what HPC is doing to the AI market. And in particular, we've been looking at the non-traditional HPC vendors. NVIDIA, Supermicro, and others are selling just a tremendous amount of equipment, in particular over the last 2 years. So we've been announcing our new tracking of the HPC market, which effectively has increased it by about a third, but it's changed it from growing at a 7 to 8% growth rate over the next 5 years to more of a 15, 16% growth rate. So just tremendous changes in the market. But also, to me, the AI phenomena that happened 2 years ago really showed what you could do with large-scale computing. It kind of went through a threshold with ChatGPT, showing the world how great it is. And it's lifting the boat of, HPC, AI, use cases, and budgets around the world are just increasing at a rate we haven't seen in the past. So we're real excited about that.
Yeah, for me being involved with HPC for decades now, off and on, the AI thing, it sort of, I think, is subsuming HPC to an extent. But AI would be nowhere without HPC. I mean, should we feel defensive about that in the community, or is we being petty?
I think we should just embrace it, because AI is like a new technology. It's almost like a new way of using things. A lot of smart people were able to get enough data together and enough compute power to make something really useful that the whole world saw. So I personally think we should embrace it and kind of go along for the ride. The AI training, by our historic definitions, anything that's AI training is R&D, and that really should be HPC. So from our perspective, it all kind of fits under the same umbrella. So I think it's good news. In particular, we are always concerned about budgets, new use cases, new ways to use HPC, and they're just exploding all over the place. So I'm very optimistic about the whole thing, and don't worry about the pessimistic issues. I guess my biggest concern actually is the negative things that AI can be used for. So that's not really a market issue. It's more of an end use case. I think certain things in life are just going to be more difficult to discern. In particular, things like, fake media, the military, the criminal side also. So those are just things that we have to be a little more careful with.
Yeah. Now, Addison, you and your firm recently came out with a market update. What were some of the more interesting findings that you all arrived at that you think will be taken up next week?
Yeah, we did. And, some of it is pursuant to what Earl was just talking about, that we're seeing on the supply side a lot of uptake of these high performance technologies, the GPU accelerated servers really taking off, including companies that we would normally think of as bellwethers for the on-premises portion of the market, like HPE and Dell. And what we found is that they've been swept up in hyperscale AI as well. And while enterprise AI or on-premises AI is accelerating a little faster than we had originally forecast, what's continued to boom is the hyperscale AI portion of the market, where we're now saying that the hyperscale segment in total will spend $112 billion this year on AI infrastructure. And it's on premises is moving up, but nothing like that much. And what I want to look for goes back to what Lois was just talking about. I love this plenary panel kicking off SC, where we can talk about some of the real world use cases. We get Oak Ridge National Labs with Bronson Messer and Chris Ledoux from Luma Logic, Juan Alonso from Stanford, Sylvia Zorzetti from Fermilab. Let's talk about the real world applications of AI in the overlapping on-premises HPC AI market. And is that really going to be well served by the technologies that are being designed for hyperscale, where your primary applications are, image and video enhancement and some content generation, virtual environments, the things Earl was talking about. Is that the same market or a different market? And I want to watch out for things like, precision of models. Who's talking about 64-bit precision and, languages? All of these things are affected as we move forward. And I think it is a really worthwhile conversation I'm looking forward to having next week.
Yeah, I know, Earl, that's a theme you're looking at, is how, AI technology is impacting HPC. And that whole theme of, vendors are going to go where the market opportunity is. And will that help or hurt HPC? Traditional HPC.
Right. I think it's going to change traditional HPC for a number of things. As Addison mentioned, the supply issue, the primary processor and GPU suppliers are now moved to a 12-month cycle. And that makes it difficult for a buyer, because whatever you place an order, maybe it takes 6 months, 9 months to get your machine. It's almost old on day one. And then, you've got to keep it longer because they're getting so expensive. So what we think is the on-prem system content design will change quite a bit, in the sense that you'll probably see multiple modules of machines. So as Addison was saying, do you need 64-bit processing for doing a lot of AI? Not really. So you'll probably have a machine that may be an 8-bit machine or a 16-bit machine, and then you have your other machines for doing traditional mod sim. So I think from a data center management procurement viewpoint, it's going to become much more complex. I think for the end user, it's going to be a little more complicated to know where you should run your application, because some applications, in particular when you mix AI and HPC together, some parts may need one type of system and then other parts may need a different type. So I think the complexity is getting higher, but at the same time, I think the performance capabilities and what can be accomplished is growing dramatically too.
Now, Lois, for you at the national, at Argonne with Aurora, how are you seeing the impact of this trend at the national lab level, where you're doing a lot of the traditional mod sim kind of HPC work?
Well, we're definitely at an exciting phase where teams are looking to blend both traditional modeling and simulation with more data-oriented and AI-oriented approaches. So I would say that it's an exciting time for not only the developers of end science applications, but also for the developers of software technologies who build tools, libraries, and whatnot that then enable the higher level applications to function. So it's an exciting time. And I looked through the entire program for supercomputing and found so many sessions that are showcasing the advances among the community in terms of developing new functionality in computer science, math, and related technologies that are showcased through tutorials, workshops, and panels, and whatnot, and likewise are showcasing new exciting use cases on the application end. So it'll be challenging to figure out where to go. At any given time, there are at least 3 things happening that I personally am interested in, but there'll be a lot to see.
Yeah, in a way, the SC conference is kind of a holdout for traditional HPC. Is that a fair characterization, would you say?
Well, I think there's a mix. Certainly, there's still a lot of exciting so-called traditional HPC and modeling and simulation, but it's all really working towards the future where we're combining modes of analysis and computing, including data and AI, as well as modeling and simulation.
Yeah. And staying with you, Lois, are there any sessions in particular you'll be looking at? I saw one on your list, HPC art.
Well, that looks like a fun one. I'm not involved with it, but when I perused the program, I thought that would be an interesting place to see some of the beauty that comes from doing our work and representing the science in ways that are visually appealing.
Yeah. And Earl, any other particular areas you'll be looking at next week? Or Addison too, jump in. But I know cooling isn't the most, I guess you could say, the sexiest area, but that's such an important theme these days. I mean, are there any other areas like that you'll be following?
Well, first of all, we always like to hear about the top 500 results. The number of new machines going onto the list has really slowed down. So, the number 1, 2, and 3 are important, but we also look at the whole list. But when you mention liquid cooling, we get involved in a lot of data center issues, as far as building construction, power, and cooling. The new NVIDIA processors, if you're going to do the larger ones or the faster ones, require liquid cooling, and the amount of power going to the racks are just going through the ceiling. So we're trying to figure out, where everyone's going to land. Is everyone going to actually bring in liquid cooling and, gigantic cabling to every rack just for the power? Or will a lot of folks say, no, I'm going to use a lower end processor because I can get a lot more of them for my budget. And then that leads into this big thing we're looking for is all the new processor ASICs, new types of GPUs, because NVIDIA's created a pricing umbrella where these other products can actually live under fairly well. And we expect to see kind of this explosion in new types of hardware and, of course, new software. But those are some of the areas that we're looking at in detail.
Addison, how about you?
Yeah, double clicking on a lot of it. First, we are excited about top 500, like Earl just said. I'll underline that. I think we're going to find some interesting stories there, and enough said about that until it happens. I want to see some things beyond just the processors themselves. Obviously, cooling, sustainability, we have to get into that because they're drawing so much power. But let's talk about data management at scale for these applications and how that's evolving, or the interconnects in this space. I think Ultra Ethernet Consortium is one of the most interesting, compelling stories that's going to affect the market over the next couple of years. Anything having to do with where HPC and AI meet the real applications, like the keynote from Nikki Fox or the from NASA, or the plenary session we already mentioned, I think are important. And going back to what you asked, Lois, and you were talking about whether SC is the last holdout for these traditional HPC applications, I don't think so, because when we go to the vertical specific conferences, whether it's the Rice Energy Conference looking at the oil and gas applications, or something on Wall Street, all of these really get into very specific application use cases, and we find the need for HPC and science hasn't gone anywhere. AI can really be a help in augmenting HPC in many of these areas, but when it comes to science, at some point you also have to do the math. And we talk about it's maybe less exciting to do math sometimes, but science and engineering, we do math. And I want to go to supercomputing and talk to people who are doing math sometimes. And I love it for that reason. And I think math is going to still be relevant for years to come.
And as I've heard you say many times, science never stops. We're never going to be done with science, right?
We're going to have science. Even after the AI revolution is complete, science is going to be there, and we're going to need to do it.
Very good. Okay, so many thanks to all 3 of you, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week in Atlanta. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great,
Doug.
thanks.